I'll set the stage by explaining what we're looking at here. This is a tool that's built into our system that I mentioned earlier, allows you to see what opportunity is available. So this little chart on the left, you can see what we call the opportunity curve. The large line at the top being what you could actually achieve without any sort of constraints. The smaller little line being what you could achieve given the constraints that you have, and the red dot being where you are today. So what we can see by that is there's clearly a lot of opportunity in this particular example to make pricing adjustments, and one, if to keep the same constraints and rules and achieve a better outcome, because this chart looks at revenue and profit on the X and Y axis. Or if you were to relax some of the rules, which we'll talk about a little bit later, there's even more opportunity that you could achieve. So moving on to this chart to the right, this is what we call the lambda, which identifies how much you want to emphasize the importance of profit. So by adjusting this number, you can essentially weight profit, sales, and units differently depending on the particular strategy of the category, the department, or the total store that you're looking at. I think this is a great tool, both for doing an individual optimization, looking at a really granular view of a category so that you can implement a specific category strategy. I also think it's a great annual or quarterly planning tool so that you can identify for leadership that might have a specific sales or profit goal, what's actually achievable through pricing. So Nathaniel, I'll pass over to you to take us through how you guys leverage this in your business.
Yes, so this is really the starting point when we're looking at optimizing pricing in a category. And what I like about this page coming in is I can see my current state, that red dot on the chart, and then all the options available to me and how I can plot a different point on the chart based on the trade-off between profit and revenue. And this is where we would take into consideration the category itself. So a convenience category, we might want to drive profit versus a destination category where we're more interested in driving more units to. And really like that I can click on different points on the curve and see the actual projected impact it is going to have if we take the price changes that are recommended. And I use this in combination with the next page, which we're not looking at, which shows the individual price recommendations so that I can quickly see which items would get an increase, which ones wouldn't, and by selecting different points on the line, what level of impact of price changes we're going to see in accepting those recommendations.
That's a great overview. I mean, I like to say that this particular report is where the science meets the strategy, where you can have a real impact as pricing experts on the strategy in a category, what it's possible to achieve across your business. So it really makes, Nathaniel, I'm sure you feel this way. Pricing analysts, directors, VPs feel smart about the information that they're presenting across the organization.
Yes, no, that's a good point in that we can say, if we select this point, this is the impact we are going to see on the business.
That's great.
So we look at, let's say, more than 5 and less than 10 competitors in our immediate area, not necessarily all premium retailers. We design our rules differently based on department. So some departments are benchmarked against a mass market versus other departments are looking more closely at a regional or specialty retailer. We capture competitor data monthly, which is probably on the low end compared to some of our competition. But we've found that based on the size of our team and our process, we wouldn't really have the ability to react to weekly or daily price scrapes. So we've stuck with the monthly process.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Awesome. So we'll keep it moving. I'll pass back over to Ryan to talk about best practices in getting started.
Yeah, thanks, Seth. I appreciate it. Great insight thus far. Everything that we talked about certainly can seem complicated and seem daunting. Rest assured that, this process is consumable. You certainly can start in various parts of the journey, depending on where your maturity sits right now. And this is not necessarily in a succinct order. So the interesting thing is you can gain value and insights on how you price and become more nimble and effective versus your competition to lead to all those good business benefits that Seth had mentioned before. And here are some examples of that, right? Simply starting with some basic competitor analysis, right? And where your competition is in fact priced versus against yourself. And again, making sure that you're comparing like for like your products versus theirs, or your category versus theirs, is a very basic way to start, and you can have some pretty good insights right away. Some of the specific elements of your business around store zone clustering, and are your price zones actually, doing what they need to do to reflect the nature of your shoppers in those particular areas. Some analysis to make sure that your zones are accurate is certainly something that is reasonable for a starting point. Same thing with KVIs. Are the KVIs and the products that you put forward as special or unique from a pricing standpoint? Are those the ones that are really making the difference, right? That analysis can be done in a pretty easy fashion. And the same thing with categories, right? Are the roles and the rules associated with each of your categories effective? That all dovetails into your overall pricing strategy, which through this cycle can revisit on a frequent basis with more informed data to make sure that pricing strategy is aligned with your overall business objectives and what you want to get in terms of results. And then certainly in the most sophisticated area, rigorous optimization on a regular basis, even down to the SKU level and the store level, is capable on a frequent basis. And of course, measuring the results of those price changes and price recommendations through value measurement is critical. We can help in any part of this journey. There's no right or wrong place to start, and there's value to be had at each one of these along the way. Nathaniel, curious from your standpoint, and Gelson's, if you have any advice to folks that are somewhere along this journey and maybe a little bit more early stage, any guidance that you give them in terms of maybe some things to look out for, or how best to optimize the journey from start to finish?
Sure. So we talked about data before, and I'll reiterate that having good quality, clean data is the foundation to a project like this. I'd also recommend think about your business and where it fits into the competitive landscape, and how leveraging price optimization is going to either perpetuate that perception or help change the perception in whichever way you're trying to achieve. Uh, Certainly, as with anything, want to have a champion in the C-suite that is going to help usher the project through and get buy-in across the organization, and take it at your own pace. It is a process, and we are still working our way through this journey, and recognize that it is not going to happen overnight. It's not throw your data in and press the optimization button and everything comes out perfect in the other end. There is work required, and think about systems and downstream impacts that this is going to have on the business. I'll give an example from our company. We print paper tags. So we are limited in the capacity of price changes that can be made at store level. And so as we are making price changes, we have to recognize that we need to spread out a large number of changes, look at what the store and scan coordinators are doing on a given day, and if they have the capacity to make the changes that we are implementing. And for us, we keep telling ourselves, trust the system. We have a partner. We bought the tool. It is now on us to trust the system and recognize that it is smart and uses all those algorithms you mentioned to come up with great recommendations, and recognize that we are optimizing to a category, and the goal is to drive sales, revenue, and profit in the category. And that means at the individual product level, there will be winners and losers. But the goal is to optimize the category as a whole. So not to get too hung up on the minutia of what's happening at the item level.
Well said, Nathaniel.
Hey guys,
All right.
before we move on to the next slide, I'm wondering if you can unpack the second step in the process, price zone mapping. Got a question in, curious about if there are more than one price zone selected, and what factors lead to the selection of those price zones.
Sure. I'll take that one, and Ryan or Nathaniel, if you want to jump in, feel free. Price zone mapping depends on your strategy. So most retailers come to us with anywhere from 1 to 30 plus different price zones that they already manage on a daily basis. Just to be really basic, the price zone is how you structure your prices across stores. So it's could be 5 stores in price zone 1, 5 stores in price zone 2, and a 10 store pricing chain. So what we say here for price zone mapping, where to start, is to look at that current structure that you have in your business. Do you have 1 zone? Do you have 10? And is that the right structure for what you'd like to do going forward? Sometimes we have customers come to us with 1 pricing zone because they're doing it manually and they'd like to get more granular. They see opportunity with these 10 stores over in this particular region where they could be more competitive, or another 5 stores where they could be a slightly less competitive, depending on, might be the demographics, it might be the competition in that particular area, whatever the factors may be. So we can help you with that process. We have a strategic way of looking at price zone mapping. It's one of the additional strategic analyses that we do here beyond just price optimization. But it's also something that customers will come to us with an existing structure that we can ingest into the tool and make sure that we're recommending prices according to that price zone mapping.
Thanks for sharing that.
Sure. And I think that's our last slide, Kelly. So if obviously we want to invite everybody to take action today, reach out to Ryan, visit the cleardemand.com/NGA website, where we have some more information for you, where you can sign up and schedule, whether it's a demo or if you'd just like an initial conversation to learn more, to ask specific questions. We're happy to meet with you and look forward to it as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. A lot of good information there. We do have a couple of minutes here, so please share questions either in the Q&A or the chat feature, and we'll share those out. I do have one, and I'm wondering, Nathaniel, if you can take us back to day 1 and talk about that change management process. You shared that, you're a data analyst, and I think there's a lot of grocers that may not have that much expertise, or maybe their teams are just a little bit leaner. So take us back to the first day, and any lessons learned in that process.
Yes. Again, clean data is great, but even taking on a new tool like ClearDemand, there was work to be done, and there continues to be work done at a data level. And some of that has to do with whether it's relationships that were not previously put in place, or data points that were a nice to have and are now a required to have. So we found that when we were starting the process, uh, we went very slowly. We went in, we looked at a category, we picked it apart and asked a lot of questions and threw it out to the team and said, why is this price going up and why is this price going down? And that's kind of led us to the approach, which I mentioned now, of trusting the tool and understanding that there's a lot of science going on under the hood, and that because we're optimizing to the category, it's less the impact to an individual item, but the overall impact to the category. Working with ClearDemand has definitely brought some items to light as far as where we should be focusing our energies and how we can change the way we do certain things. So one example is how we identify our KVI items. Uh, Based on our work with ClearDemand, we have changed our logic to identify KVI items and incorporating the elasticities that are calculated within the tool.
Thanks. Yeah, we definitely have talked a lot about transparency in the session today. I can imagine, it's important on the customer side, it's important on the team side, it's really important all around. Ryan and Seth, I'm curious if you can share. I know you've worked with a lot of retailers in this process, getting them started all the way through. What is one of the biggest misconceptions that you find that retailers have about price optimization?
That's a great question. I think this goes back to the clean data, right? There's a number of areas that price recommendations and price optimization can go sideways. So making sure you do it correctly with, again, accurate competitive intelligence data, effective and clean, transaction log data, as Nathaniel mentioned on the Gelson side, and then understanding the transparency, as Seth mentioned, on the basis of the recommendation versus a black box, I think is very important. You don't trust is important, but understanding where the trust comes from is very critical, that you're making good decisions and the results in terms of the recommendation, the elasticity, and the forecast is actually accurate, right? Because if that is not right, that could lead to some pretty significant implications in terms of just pricing incorrectly and poor customer satisfaction and bad perception, et cetera. So those sorts of things, just to make sure that there's transparency, there's clean data, there's accuracy, and the recommendation is actually accurate, right? And the validation of that recommendation, as we talked about, I think is very critical. So that was a pretty broad answer, but that's at least my perspective on what would be critical.
Yeah, that's
Seth,
Actually,
anything I missed?
yeah, I'll share one thing that I've seen, which is that, we've had retailers come to us and say, well, we're too small to do price optimization with a tool like this, or we need to do all this work in order to get a tool set up like this. It's easier than you think it is. And there is no such thing as being too small to get this work done. So our tool is designed to make it easy for chains like Gelson's with 26 stores, or other chains that have hundreds or thousands of stores. It's really built to make your lives more efficient. So don't look at that as a preconceived notion to prevent you from trying to implement a price optimization tool, because we've worked with customers large and small that have been successful with it.
awesome. Great words of advice. All right, I think my final question is for Nathaniel. What can you share about the customer experience? Did you receive any comments? Is this anything that any customers are any word to the wiser on, or is it really mostly behind the scenes?
Haven't heard anything specific from customers based on pricing. I will say, being a premium player, we always have a steady screen of comments from our customers about our prices. That has not changed since the implementation of ClearDemand, which I take as a good thing, and that the pricing has gone relatively unnoticed. I will say, in the time we've been running the program, we've had inflation and tariffs, so that certainly could be masking any changes we're making. But I I don't expect that at the customer level they are recognizing that we have changed from the old way of being reactive to cost changes to taking a more data-driven science approach to pricing is noticeable.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, before we close it out, Seth or Ryan, do you have any final thoughts?
Thank you everyone for attending today, and Nathaniel, thank you so much for your partnership and the level of insights today. We appreciate everybody, and thanks to NGA as well.
Great. Yes, thank you for attending and being a part of the NGA community, spending part of your day with us. This wraps today's session, and keep doing what you do best, supporting your shoppers, your teams, and your communities.